Okay, guys, we'll slowly start. So, hello from me again, your good friend from Europe. Um, and here we are for our general meeting for the month of February. Let me share my screen so you guys can see this week's slideshow. Okay, I believe you all can see it now. So again, welcome to our general meeting for the month of February. It's been a while since we met last time, and I recall we had some really good things to discuss, especially during our Q&A session. And I look forward to another great session with all of you today. Here is what we're going to be discussing. Before we proceed to agenda, I just want to remind everyone of our Zoom housekeeping rules. So during the presentation, I would like to ask you to keep your microphones muted when presenter is actively speaking in order for everyone to be able to follow the content properly. When joining the Q&A session or making any comments, I would recommend to make sure to control background noises in order to eliminate any lack of clarity in the sound that's coming from you. Position yourself in a camera well when participating in the session. Be an active listener, follow the presentation and the subject. Do not allow any kind of distraction. Do not multitask. Most importantly, if you're driving right now, I would again like to ask you to please leave the channel for the safety purposes. We will provide recording of this meeting later on, and you guys will be able to watch the replay of our meeting. Here's what we're going to be discussing today. So we'll have a safety subject for the month of February. This time that's going to be the subject of speeding. We will also discuss on-time performance policy. We've been discussing this with many of you lately, but officially this is going to come in with the month of March. We're going to go through the system. We're going to explain the policy. We're going to explain what tools and options you guys have at your hand to monitor your metrics. Also, we're going to discuss the business, the loads outlook for the month of February, and we're going to provide some tips how you can enhance and boost your chances to get more loads in the coming week or weeks. Of course, at the end of the session, we're going to have a Q&A, and you guys will be able to comment or ask any questions on the subjects we discussed, or perhaps something that we didn't cover today. We're going to start with our safety subject. So as I said, we'll be talking about speeding today, and best way for us to open this subject is to define what the problem here really is. So this is an act of driving beyond speed limits set by the state for a specific highway or specific vehicle type. It's considered as a form of aggressive driving, and in this session, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the depths of this problem and assess it through many different aspects. So one thing to realize why people speed at all, right? So we want to cover that from the start. First of all, here are the reasons that drive the speeding, the problem of speeding. Traffic congestion. People get frustrated when they find themselves in this situation, and this causes them to switch lanes aggressively and even use emergency lanes to get around the traffic. This behavior often leads to them speeding and thinking that they can actually get ahead by doing so. Second reason, and most common in our industry, running late. And this is specifically tied to on-time performance that we'll discuss today. So people are on a move and sometimes running late, running behind the appointment that they have. One often solution, so-called solution, that they turn to is thinking that they can make up that time by driving above the limits. That is, in fact, wrong and, of course, unsafe, and it's illegal. So do never take this practice when you're out there and running late. There are other alternatives. Third, an interesting concept that I researched is called anonymity. And this basically suggests that people tend to isolate themselves while in vehicles. They isolate themselves from the world, shielded from the outside environment. People develop this sense of detachment, and they act as an observer of their surrounding rather than a participant. Keep in mind, in traffic, you are a participant and you affect everyone else. So this makes people less constrained in their behavior when they feel they are not being observed or they do not participate. Fourth is pretty much straightforward and has been on the rise in the United States lately. Outrageous, aggressive driving. Some people out there disregard the law and people around them. This is the most aggressive form of behavior on the road. They have a clear intent to disrupt people around them, and studies even show that acts of rude and outrageous behavior have been on the rise in the past year. So this is something to watch out for. The next thing I want to cover is what dangers do we expose ourselves to when we take part in any form of speeding ourselves. As we travel at higher speeds, there is a higher chance of loss of control and steering, as many people turn to slamming brakes and steering to the side to avoid or minimize the collision. Chance of a rollover increases as well, and this is especially something that applies to the higher profile vehicles that we're relating this subject to. Speeding decreases your reaction time as well. If you're encountering a vehicle or somebody stepping on the road ahead of you, and you're driving at a high speed, you have less time to react. So operating at higher speed steals away a couple of crucial seconds for you to assess the situation and react timely. It increases your stopping distance, so it would take you longer to stop your vehicle at a higher speed, logically. So there's another potential problem you may face. It increases the severity of the collision in the event of a crash, God forbid. Collisions at higher speeds increase the chances to serious injuries, more damage, and even, of course, a fatality in the most severe cases. In the event of a crash, protective equipment such as airbags and seatbelts are exposed to a higher chance of a failure if collision occurred at a higher speed. Speeding results into unsafe and hard braking as well. Traveling at high speed prevents drivers from braking within vehicle safe limits. So beside all dangers that it poses to the drivers themselves, it poses risks to the condition of the vehicle as well. Research has proven that people who are prone to the speeding are likely to develop other forms of aggressive driving. So speeding is seen as an entry stage of the big scheme of the problems that later develop on, and they eventually create a product that's called bad and dangerous driver. Final and interesting point here is to consider is the economic setback or loss. Having a habit to unsafely operate your vehicle is likely going to cause technical problems, and it's going to force you into repairs, parts replacement, and so on. So crashes are self-explanatory from the perspective of your economy. Losses can be tremendous, and if one doesn't get around with the technical implications and dangerous situations, there is one more thing to consider: speeding tickets. And they can cost a lot. So fuel costs a lot too. And remember, traveling at higher speed emits more CO2 by consuming more fuel, forcing you to visit gas station more often. I like to always focus on the numbers when discussing any of these safety subjects in order for us to understand the significance of the problem. So reading this question, guys, what country has the highest crash death rates in high-income countries? Yes, you guessed it right. If it crossed your mind, that is indeed United States of America. Leading the way here in high-income countries, United States of America has the highest crash death rate compared to the other next 28 other high-income countries. I've included this chart to show the statistics very clearly. Accidents and fatalities have been on the rise in the United States over the last 4 years, and speeding in particular is America's most disobeyed law. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, they are a federal government agency under Department of Transportation, state that speeding is actually a factor for more than 30% of all traffic fatalities in United States. So statistics and reports do show that in every third accident, at least one involved driver was in fact speeding. That's how critical this is. It's also interesting to look into this chart that pretty much breaks down these cases based on the season. So as you guys can see, summer is absolutely leading the way because as the weather gets better and road conditions tend to somewhat improve, right? A lot of people get relaxed and they often turn to speeding. As a result, we have the highest rate in summer. Fall is also very critical because you have a rain season coming in, so conditions tend to worsen. I'm glad to see that in winter, a lot of people take caution, but there is always room for more caution and more improvement and more awareness in general when it comes to this. Speeding can be really even more deadlier when combined with additional challenging factors. So let's start from the road infrastructure in the US. Experts say that American road infrastructure is both dangerously overstretched and lagging behind many other developed nations. Weather, as we said, another thing to consider. Driving by the posted speed limit is enough to safely operate in normal weather conditions, but your judgment is critical as to how far you should go when the conditions are not exactly normal. So we're talking about fall season, winter season, rainy conditions, wet or icy roads and such. Drivers are often advised to travel at low speeds when traveling on wet or icy roads, for example. And other seasonal dangers may also include heavy rain, strong winds, and even being in close proximity of tornadoes. On the other hand, some areas tend to be challenging at all times. People who drive to Western Canadian provinces such as Saskatchewan often report strong winds combined with heavy snow in winter season, ice as well. Going up to Alaska is a story of its own. For that, I obviously recommend the episode of On the Road show with one of our most experienced drivers, Melody Paris. Over the past few years, I have to say, we had a total of 4 drivers that have taken loads to Alaska. Fortunately, there has been no issues for them getting to their destination and returning all the way back. Another thing to consider, distractions. As we said, about 77% of traffic accidents are due to driver error, and most of these are actually preventable, but they are often related to distracted driving. What kind of distractions are most common? Either talking or texting on your phone while driving, eating, rooming, reading from another source and not paying attention to the situation in front and around you, and many other things that people tend to do while driving. Your focus should mainly be on the space that's around you and on vehicles that are around you. So make sure to allow no distractions while you're in motion on the road out there. These are some images from our drivers who have been in similar situations before. I tend not to spend too much time looking at these, but this is what happens. I've also looked at the reports when it comes to injuries. Most reported injuries from accidents that arise from speeding, head and brain injuries, fractures, lacerations, back, neck, and spinal cord injuries, and disfigurements. I've included this chart for us to see what the health concern or dangers are there when we're not careful enough out there on the road. So starting from head injuries that include concussions, skull fractures, eye injuries, broken noses, all the way to whiplash injuries, damage to the neck from impacts, back injuries, herniated discs, especially damage to the lumbar spine, broken bones and fractures all over the body, depending on the circumstances of the crash and part of the body that was involved with the collision. So this is the price that's paid in such situations. I want to provide and close the safe driving here with some tips for you guys to consider and keep in mind at all times. Safety comes first. Whatever other concerns there are, overthinking or trying to prioritize them above your focus and attention on the situation on the road and around you is not gonna make any progress or bring any solution. Your safety comes first, and for that reason, you got to make sure that your focus and attention to detail on the road are always at number one. Smart scheduling, obviously, anytime you get a load or you plan to get out on the roads from your home, make sure to make a plan of how long you want to stay on the road. You know your settings, you know what parts of the country you'll be visiting, you know what season it is, plan wisely, what stuff you got to bring with you, and prepare accordingly based on that. Use applications for weather and traffic updates. I believe Google does the best job to date when it comes to this. Always look ahead, inspect your route, see what's the situation like ahead of your position. Perform vehicle checks regularly because your vehicle is equally crucial in this whole session as much as your awareness is. Avoid distractions, as we said earlier. Never allow anything to distract you from driving. Do not shy away from seeking community help. We have seen in many situations before when we were stuck in the snow or face similar issues that there are always people out there willing to help. In addition to that, obviously, it's wise researching into proper or recommended nutrition for drivers and a good exercise plan, which is going to keep you healthy and generally keep your mood in the right place. And of course, never drive when you're tired. Make sure you take enough amount of sleep so that you never face fatigue management issues out there on the road. So at this point, I would like to close the speeding subject. We're going to move to loads and the business that we had. We're going to have Munir join us here.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear me and see me as well. Just a quick insight into February as a month. February as a month has been quite similar to the January. Winter months are historically last year as well have been similar in the business, except that year when we had a vaccine mandate. Kind of January was special because a lot of our drivers went in and vaccinated, and we're doing a lot of Canada loads, and everything back then in 2021, I think went through the roof when it comes to revenue, loads, and everything else because of the Canadian vaccine mandate. Now, last 2 years, we've had kind of January and February were together with December are usually the worst months that we encounter. And they're a prelude to successful spring that will happen, inshallah. So as a company, we booked 832 loads so far in February, approximately 10.25 loads per active driver. And that's on average 3.5 loads a week, approximately. Now, again, this is average on what we have with active drivers that are in service. Average driver pay was $2,022. Now, this is, like I said, average, and this is first half of the month was much better than the end part of the month. But hopefully, with March incoming and with spring incoming, we can turn this around. Now, this is usually what we market right now, quote unquote, is around 2,000 on average. When you take the whole month into perspective, not just last 2 weeks, then it was around 2,000. Now, taking into account, and we do that, and we can provide that on one of the other meetings as well. We do break this down, and you know how many drivers earned over 3,000, how many over 4,000, how many under 1,000. One thing that is really telling and that is really self-explanatory when it comes to drivers' revenue is if they're too picky with loads, if they're restricted too much, obviously they will be in $1,000 to $1,500 area, whereas drivers who are more open, more relaxed when it comes to where they go and what loads they're taking, they're around 2,000 plus. Now, usually every week we have drivers that are earning 3,000, 4,000 and plus, but like I said, this is the average that we have in the company. Now, usually, historically, I check coming the March and April, and of course, summer is a different thing, but March and April, we already have it has an impact on loads because a lot of the roads are clearing up. You know, Canada is more active with the with the loads because the snow will be gone by the end of March, of course, and that's why we can expect an increase in work and revenue. So overall, I wouldn't say this was the best month we ever had. It was very similar to January, but it's close to expected when it comes to when you look at the history. Now, this is not what we want to see. 2,000 average driver pay. We want to see much more on the average, possibly around 2,500. But yeah, I think that's something we will do come spring and summer, of course. Now, if you can move to the next slide, Vedad. This is my suggestion. Last time when we discussed this, and especially for drivers that will be looking at the recording, last time when we discussed driver dispatch setup suggestion, because it was still February, was still winter was in a full swing. We provided a little bit different on the suggestion what you should do as a driver. Now, because we did not include necessarily Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, or Quebec. We had Ontario, we had Midwest, and down to South. Now, this is more opening because right now we will be seeing increase in loads that are going up north to Canadian provinces. And also, I would not shy away at all from South, even though it is painful to get out of Texas. But in order for us to go through this difficult period, we have to be less picky and take as much loads as we can. Of course, I put in the whole West and the very, very east part and Florida. I put in as yellow. Maybe you can bid on it if you have your own price for it. But right now, Florida hasn't been the greatest for us, as it wasn't for a long period of time. But this, what I marked here as green, I think is something where it is a civilization. Even if you're not booked immediately upon delivering, it is a civilization. We'll figure something out. Whereas other areas, you know, it's historically has been difficult to get out of. If you need this picture, I can send it over to you guys. But really, we have to be able to have realistic conversation when we tell you, all right, the situation is not the greatest, but here is the setup that if you put it, you will most probably be in the area of 2,000 on average. You will not be in 1,000s. In 1,000s, usually our drivers who are doing local, trying to do something local, trying to do something regional, whereas in 2,000 plus are drivers that are having a similar setup like this. I encourage all of you because I've seen, and I'll have my team do a audit on this. I've seen a lot of drivers, probably because of winter, they are not going not even to Ontario and Quebec. Guys, Ontario and Quebec are civilization. This is a job we all we chose, and I understand it's not difficult to drive in the snow, and that's completely understandable. I'm not a professional driver, but as someone who knows where the loads are, I encourage you wholeheartedly to take Ontario and Quebec and have it always in your setting because that's where you will earn money. Now, again, and now with the spring coming as well, I encourage you to do that. We'll do an audit, and I'll encourage all of you to always have Ontario and Canada on. Well, that's pretty much it. Hopefully, as I said, spring is coming, and the change is coming. The winter will be behind us. Usually, every winter is hard, especially last two winters. Thank you for sticking by BHX. We will deliver, and we always deliver in the end, but you need as well to take responsibility into your own hands. Use the app that we have provided you with and put in correct settings. Now, even if you don't want to put this green, please be active on those yellows. Don't wait for the load to fall from the sky because it will not. So you need, if you're on the yellow, if you're bidding on yourself, you need to be constantly bidding without stop, unless you want to put it to dispatch hands to book you. Now, this is my advice to you as someone who realistically wants to give you what will make it work for you. I don't want to give you fables and stories that will not come true in the end. That's my advice to you guys. Thank you so much for listening. But that has, I think, one or two things to go over.
Thank you, Munira. Before we move to on time, one thing about yellow states, I've discussed this subject many times with some of you guys. The states that you have on yellow, we often discuss state selection, and we discover that you guys want actually to move some states to green. So again, the states that are marked in yellow are the states where these are the load opportunities that deliver to a state you marked yellow. They will come to your phone, and you guys need to assess whether you want to place your bid or not, right? From my experience when discussing this with you guys, I've come to realize that sometimes we just put some states on yellow and we're kind of missing the opportunities. We want to go there, we treat them the same way we do as the green states, but you guys are not placing the bids, and then we're kind of missing on those opportunities. So make this assessment carefully, check on your settings again after this session, and make changes where necessary. We're gonna move to on-time performance right now. So this is something that we've been discussing individually with some of you when it comes to your performance and some scenarios that you guys have encountered so far. This is gonna go live in month of March. Now, I do want to start this subject from zero and give full background to this to all of you here. So in the expedite industry, being on time is one of the most important metrics that determine and rank carriers and drivers' performance. So BHX implemented on-time policy that makes sure the communication between drivers, dispatch, and customers is well coordinated, and all parties involved in the process are timely informed of all events that take place on a load. Now, good on-time performance improves our rating of BHX as a carrier, and it improves chances for all of you to get loads easier from our customers, because our overall rating places us higher on their rank list. And as we said earlier, this performance, this metric is one of the most important things they will look at. In BHX, we further incentivize and reward drivers for outstanding on-time results through many different incentive and reward programs. Some of you guys here have already been rewarded through our driver rewards program with the corresponding amount of points, which can be redeemed into real world items. Moving on, BHX drivers are required to have milestone application and location tracing on in order to automatically transmit their location while in service or on a load. Application does the rest of the job. It automatically informs our customers and stores this data on our systems for our dispatch to use. Location information is critical not only for customers and dispatch to track the progress of the load, but also to have as accurate empty mileage or deadhead as possible when bidding on new loads for our drivers. It is mandatory to use check-in and check-out features for pickups and deliveries on every load that we do. With one click of a button, we can mark ourselves as arrived or departed from each stop, and this data allows all involved parties to track all arrivals and departures and determine whether drivers have made it on time or not. Concept of ETAs, estimated time of arrival, can sometimes be put up to a challenge in events such as difficult road or weather conditions, delays that you guys face with shippers or receivers, dense traffic, delays with customs and having to wait at the border, and so on. In some situations, delays are out of driver's hand, as in these examples that I just outlined. Drivers are required to fully communicate these instances to our dispatch team, and we will further assist to explain and communicate this to our customers. We will work to resolve the ongoing problem in the event of delays with shippers or receivers or customs, and new ETAs will be established and tracked when we start moving again, when the problem is resolved. But communication is the key. So as you can see on the left side of the screen, weather and road conditions, delays with the shippers and receivers, layovers, detentions, delays with customs, traffic delays, or perhaps technical issues if they're reported in a timely manner. All of this is valid as long as the issue is properly communicated when it occurs. And of course, as soon as we resolve the situation, we need to revisit our ETA, confirm the new plan, and communicate it to customer. That's how on time is properly managed and planned ahead of time. What's not considered, which instances are not considered to be justified? So instances where original appointed time is not met, but communication was not executed in a timely manner, if they were communicated after the fact, after the issue has already occurred. These are the instances that will be classified as unjustified late arrivals, and they will count against your on-time performance score. So I'll give an example here. If driver encountered bad weather and had to slow down, but didn't communicate this to dispatch at all and didn't pick up any of the phone calls for follow-up, driver then arrived on site late after their original appointment and no notice was given. Driver gets unjustified late arrival, that counts against the on-time performance score. Any discussion after the fact, like I said, will not change that. We have to make sure that everything is communicated when the issue occurs. I'll give a contrary example and how to manage this situation better. Driver has 100 miles left to drive to reach their delivery. There are 2 hours left until the appointment. Now, driver gets into dense traffic. There is a standstill, remains static for half an hour, loses time. Driver notifies our dispatch, eventually sends a picture if possible to inform us what the situation on the road is. And then when the traffic continues to move, we get another ETA and the notice that we're on the move again. So that's how it's properly managed. Some of the things that we also detected through monitoring on-time performance this month, we saw that in some instances, you guys forget to use check-in or check-out features. Again, I repeat, this is mandatory in order to track any possible detentions and to also provide clarity with the in and out times to our customers, as this piece of information is very critical in our industry. Oversleeping, use of alarm systems, I always recommend using multiple alarms, as missing one or two is very easy, speaking from personal experience. So always make sure, guys, to use multiple alarms, and that's at least another layer to avoid oversleeping and starting to move on time. In some situations, we had loads that were booked to pick up ASAP. In some of those situations, I noticed that we did not communicate the ETAs properly in the transit, and when we run late, we say we were not given enough time. Well, this is why, like I say again, we have to report ETAs and the changes ahead of time. Informational delay is something that really rarely occurs, like technical sort of problems, like the one we had a couple of days ago with the cellular data issue that impacted the country. But these are rare scenarios, and if you encounter such, as soon as you're available and able to catch signal, please reach out to us, explain the situation, and we will of course assess it. Time zone changes is something that I noticed to be quite problematic to some of you. You guys are moving from a state that is in central time zone, moving into Eastern, and because you guys lost time on something else, we often attribute this to a time zone change. Our systems are taking this into account when calculating ETAs, so this is something that shouldn't worry you. Again, any time zone changes, you gotta plan this ahead, so that when you run into that situation, we don't just go back and blame it on a time zone change. Usually, most of the unjustified late arrivals that I came across are product of lack of communication. So once again, I strongly encourage you all, guys, to always communicate any situations that you encounter that are out of your hand, or any ETA changes on the loads that you do. One more thing that we will have starting from March, so you guys will be able to log into your milestone and see your statistics. You will be able to see your performance in terms of a percentage index that shows how many of your stops were done on time. Now, stop is each, every pickup destination or every delivery destination that was involved on your load counts as one stop. So this performance, this percentage right here shows how many of those you have made on time. There is also a breakdown on the right side showing how many of them were late. That means you arriving after the original appointment that was on your rate sheet, and you have a breakdown of how many of those were justified and how many were unjustified. Down here, you will have a list of loads that were perhaps unjustified and late. So you guys will have an option to provide a dispute, right? If you feel our judgment was not right, if you feel that you perhaps provided information on this and this was unjustifiably turned down, you will have the option to submit your dispute. Please make sure when using this option to give us as many information as possible, because when assessing these cases retroactively, every bit of information is critical to us to assess the case retroactively. Every dispute that comes in, we're staffed 24/7. You guys already know that. We will make sure that we monitor all of the disputes and provide feedback in a timely manner to every case that's brought up to our attention. That's it pretty much as far as on-time performance goes. We will also release one video showing some of these features and how the dispute function really works. We'll post that in the coming days for you guys to see. And at this time, I would like us to move to our final part, which is Q&A. Any questions, any comments, or feedback on the subjects we discussed, or something else that you guys consider to be important, this is your time to shine. Gonna make sure to unmute all of you so not to face the same issue we had last time.
Background look good.
Marco, it looks to me that
Hello.
you're driving.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would again, guys, for the sake of your safety on the road, these meetings are recorded, so you will not miss any of this discussion. We'll provide the replay of the meeting, and if you're driving, I would strongly advise you not to be a part of this session, because again, this is a distraction to what you're doing right now.
Yeah, we're gonna send out a recording of it. But we have to go ahead and remove anybody that's driving. Again, it's a safety themed meeting, so obviously last thing we want is anyone that's driving attending this and perhaps being distracted.
Do we have any question or feedback, guys, to anything you encountered last week on your loads that you want to share, or perhaps maybe some ideas that you think would benefit the milestone or operations from your perspective?
Yeah, we're gonna continue to work on our end on optimizing the pricing and trying to bid as competitive rates to our customers. We have made some systematic changes, which we expect you guys to be able to get more longer loads, which is obviously a win for everybody. Everybody wants those longer loads that pay higher rates. So we expect to see more of those loads this week and going forward. I would say hopefully more loads that are over 1,000 miles. You guys have reported some issues with the app, and those are going to be fixed as well in the upcoming days. I'm gonna be sending out some information regarding some merchandise. So we finally got some BHX jackets and hoodies and t-shirts and caps. Everyone's gonna be able to get some of that stuff for free. And then anybody that's interested in purchasing more, you know, of whatever, you're gonna be able to purchase anything you want to as well. So we'll be sending that out these days. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for me. And unless anyone has any questions, we can conclude there.
Now, guys, just make sure to check if you're muted on your end, because last time I know we faced this issue.
Yeah, we can go ahead and wrap it up, Veda.
Okay, thank you guys for joining, and we'll announce our next session in March timely. You will receive the notice, and we will announce ahead of time what new subjects we'll be exploring in our next session. Again, thank you for joining, and wishing you all a very successful week ahead. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.